I want to talk about something that's been brewing in my mind for quite some time, and that is Roosh V's conversion to Christianity. So Beckloff has sent me a number of his live streams that he's done commenting on the various ridiculous things that Roosh V has done at different times, not the least of which has been this supposed conversion to Christianity. So I want to offer my thoughts on it, on everything that's gone on, especially because a lot of people, both publicly and privately, have asked me what I think about this. Also, because a few weeks, maybe a couple months ago, I remember seeing something, I don't remember if it was on Twitter or some other social media platform, but somebody said, what is it with these guys like Roosh V becoming Christian? And then somebody else said something like, yeah, Jordan Owen became a Christian recently too. What's going on with it? Okay. First, to clarify for everyone that's still not totally up to speed somehow, yeah, I'm in the process. I don't want to call myself that yet, but I am in the process of seeking confirmation with the Episcopal Church. That is not something I'm trying to evangelize. It's not something I'm trying to push on anybody, and it's not something that's changed my politics or anything like that, so don't worry. And I'm still totally fine with premarital sex and totally against creationism being taught in schools, so don't worry. But anyway, that's just a personal thing for me. I want to emphasize on no uncertain terms. If you were getting to know me at the time that I was being publicly getting to know me, coming to a public awareness of me at the time that I was being publicly associated with the so-called manosphere and the far right, I want to make something abundantly clear. I never wanted to be associated with the manosphere or the far right. I am not far right in my politics, although we live in an age that is unfortunately so politically correct that any dissent is labeled as far right. But I consider myself a socially liberal, economically, I don't like to say conservative, just economically responsible, independent. I identify as a libertarian, and I usually vote that way. But I have nothing but contempt for the manosphere. Absolutely nothing at all but contempt for the manosphere. I don't want to, I cannot go into specifics due to a legally binding NDA. I can't go into specifics, but I will say this. People will say, well, if you disagreed with them so much, how did you come to be associated with them? Something that needs to be understood. You don't have to support the manosphere. You don't have to support men's rights activists. But what needs to be understood is that men's rights activists and the manosphere are two different things. The manosphere are the people, the men's rights activists are the people with a political agenda that want to see X, Y, and Z reforms enacted in the world. Whether you agree with those reforms or those changes is irrespective of the fact that that's what that is. The manosphere is where you find the guys that want to bring back traditional masculinity, and the pickup artists, and the alt-right reactionaries, and the dude bros, and all of this awful, disgusting stuff. And I want to emphasize again, I'm not asking you to agree with the MRAs. I'm saying fundamentally these are two wholly separate things. And indeed, you may find people that are both manosphere and MRA. Those people can exist. There's going to be some overlap in any Venn diagram you find, or any Venn diagram that you put together. But essentially, these are two very separate concepts with very separate goals, and that needs to be understood. If I could have understood that, then I, in my kind of Hunter S. Thompson gonzo approach to so much of my journalism, could have spared myself a lot of problems and a lot of headaches. But suffice it to say, no. I am not part of the manosphere. I loathe and despise the manosphere. I think that there are a great many people who are prominent, active participants in the manosphere that should be in prison, and outstanding among them is Roosh V. I do not think that his alleged conversion to Christianity is any indication of any improvement in his character. I'll explain why in a moment. But the other thing I want to make a point of is a lot of these guys that have been in the manosphere and have been, manosphere and alt-right and all of this bullshit, they're now moving into something called trad, which stands for traditional, or trad-cath, which means traditional Catholic, although to me it sounds like you're putting in 3 catheters at once. But anyway, they talk about trad-cath and all of that. Roosh has thrown in his lot with the Armenian Orthodoxy, which is one of the more stringent traditionalist forms of Christianity. So that's what he's doing. I'm getting back on board with the Episcopal Church, which is the church I was largely raised in. It is far and away infinitely, although there are conservative practitioners of Episcopalianism, it is infinitely more liberal and infinitely more libertarian than something like the Armenian Orthodox or the Trad-Cath or something like that. The reason I did it my motivations for it actually came several years after my unfortunate association with all of these assholes. And it was entirely things going on in my personal life disconnected from this. And if you need any further proof that I'm not on the wavelength of these jackasses that are doing whatever the trad thing is or whatever, the person I reached out to, one of the first people I reached out to for spiritual guidance, I'm not kidding, was Randy Constant. Yeah, that Randy Constant, the famous Peter Pan impersonator. I reached out to him. He's a minister. I reached out to him to talk about email and talk back and forth and talk about spirituality. He's a great guy, by the way. And if you have questions, spiritual questions that you are confronting in your own life, he will be more than happy to converse with you. And so, yeah, because at the end of the day, I may douche on the politically correct, the extreme left politically correct people, but at the end of the day, someone like Randy Constant is still my kind of people, still the person that I'm going to go to for spiritual guidance. Roosh V probably doesn't even know who that is. So, also, by the way, the thing that prompted me to reach out to Randy Constant is I heard a song. He has he does singer-songwriter stuff, and he has a really beautiful song he wrote called "Mercy for Madness." I really recommend checking that out. It's a spiritual song, and it really spoke to me where I was at in my life. So anyway, the thing of it is, though, I've not read every single thing that Roosh V has written before or after his conversion to Christianity, but I have read enough of it to see that I don't see what I don't see. And see, I say this with trepidation because I don't want to get into the business of trying to argue who is or is not a better Christian or a real Christian or whatever. In general, that's not something I want to do. But with Roosh V, I think it's very apropos because what we have is a snake oil salesman that has found a new flavor of snake oil to sell. I think that's really all this is. And anyway, I bring that up because I do believe in my heart that part of a real, genuine, sincere Christian conversion should be and this is why, by the way, Alcoholics Anonymous is essentially a Christian practice, and this is why taking a searching, fearless inventory of everyone that you've wronged is part of. That's why it's part of the 12-step process. And I did not seek out Christianity because of 12-step. I don't have alcohol abuse issues or substance abuse problems or anything like that. It's for my own issues, but a real part of Christian conversion should be cracking yourself open, ripping yourself open, and really looking at who and what you are. And what what you have become as a result of the actions in your life. And for me, that process has meant a great deal of mindfulness about ways in which I've hurt people where and I don't even mean things where I've hurt people malevolently, just things by my own ignorance, my own inaction, my own self-absorption. I've hurt people and not been mindful of other people's needs and that kind of thing, and reaching out and making amends with those people. That should be a part of that sort of conversion. If you are genuinely reaching into your heart and genuinely changing things, that should be a part of it. And for someone like Roosh V, if he is going to honestly crack himself open and honestly have that internal dialogue where he really evaluates himself, it's got to be more than just rules and saying, I used to follow these rules, now I follow these rules. That's what he said. That's essentially what he says over and over again. The Bible tells me not to live this lifestyle. I used to live this lifestyle, now I don't live this lifestyle. This is why in people, among atheists, there's always this thing of like, well, why does the Bible say that if you, why does the Bible say that you, faith is the key and not good works. Faith leads to salvation, not good works. So I could be a horrible human being, and I could be a totally horrible human being, and 5 seconds before I die, convert to Christianity, and in my heart, and I would get into heaven, right? And to my first response to that would be, do you really think that the Almighty Creator of the universe came up with a system for salvation that is so that has a loophole so large a smart 12-year-old can figure it out? But two, the reason that it's faith and a change in the heart, not good works, that are necessary for salvation is because if it was based entirely on good works, you could just go down a checklist of doing the right thing, do this right thing, do this right thing. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And great, you get into heaven. You can still be a complete scumbag, a complete asshole, a complete degenerate, and go through and do all of those nice actions. And I hate the expression get into heaven like it's a nightclub, but reach salvation, still reach salvation that way. And that's the thing. That's why good works alone are not enough to reach salvation. It has to come with a real change of character. I have seen no indication in Roosh's writing and his commentary, and maybe I've missed something, but I have seen no indication that Roosh has in any way, shape, or form repented truly apologized for the ways that he has hurt people. I have not even seen any indication that he knows that he has hurt people. Again, he will say things like that he regrets telling young men to go out and fornicate because that goes against his Christian beliefs now, and that goes against the morality that he's supposed to practice. He'll say that, but he doesn't seem to comprehend on a deeper level the things he's done that have hurt people. And that's my question to Roosh. Is he really, truly aware of and sorry for the things that he has done that have hurt people? And I could list a lot of examples of how, of things, but, think of it this way. I once read about an incident where Roosh was there was a woman who was campaigning to have Roosh banned from entering her country. His response was to post to his forum and to Twitter and that sort of thing, a message to his followers saying, this woman has a child, yet she is focused on getting me banned from the country. I'm afraid she may not be a good parent. Please go contact Child Services and report this woman. Okay, Roosh, are you seriously going to hide behind the idea, the complete bullshit notion that you were doing that out of actual concern for that woman's child? Or are you going to realize and accept what everybody on the planet with a brain can tell you were doing, which is you were just trying to find a way to fuck with that woman that didn't want you in her country? Has he in any way, shape, or form, is he in any way, shape, or form apologetic towards the women that he has harmed? Does he regret, I don't mean, does he regret tempting them into an immoral lifestyle? I don't mean that. I mean, is he sorry for, is he sorry for the woman that he claims, this is all based on what he said, so, it may be completely delusional, I don't know, or it can be a complete lie, I don't know, but by his own claim, he once had sex with a woman that was that was asleep, totally unconscious. Is he sorry for that? Is he sorry for their examples in his writing? And I'll post them. I'll post a link to Richard Coughlin does a good video summarizing a few of these, providing a few of these examples. So I'll just link to that, so I don't have to go through and dig this shit up again. But where he talks about a woman that's trying to physically get away from him, and he grabs her and holds her down and forces himself on her to have sex with her, which. He does not only does he not consider that rape, but he's accused people like me of being mentally ill for saying that it was rape, which, by the way, is the behavior of a narcissist and a psychopath. Is he sorry for these things? Does he understand that he should be sorry for these things? Is he sorry for the women that he has abused and terrorized and I'm talking solely by the admission of his own writing and his own books. Is he sorry for any of this? Does he understand that he ought to be sorry for it? I don't think so. And as I think about all of the bullshit that I've put up with from Roosh V and his cronies, one thing in particular, and I don't even consider myself to be much of a victim of his behavior, relatively speaking. This comes up in my mind because Roosh writes about, here's the thing, the most poisonous thing that Roosh has ever done, or the most poisonous toxic impact that Roosh has ever had on my life, and Beckloff has talked about this a lot, is the clinical, dead, emotionless, robotic, that word robotic keeps coming back, the robotic way that he describes things. The robotic way that he describes things is enough to put anybody off of anything that he writes about. Read, for the guy that claims to, all of his books about game and putting women in bed and all of this stuff, for all of that, he talks about sex like it's something you would never want to do. He talks about it in the most just sickeningly clinical manner. And it's a manner that's completely devoid of joy and passion and happiness for being alive, the things that you would hope that sexual intercourse would bring you above and beyond the mere physical stimulus of it. And the thing is, for all of his manifold sins, to go ahead and use the term, the thing that is most revolting to me about Roosh V is not only the way he describes everything in this clinical, passionless, joyous way, but the way that he has this psychopathic need to dehumanize everybody into a series of categories, into alphas and betas and gammas and omegas and all of that Vox Day bullshit that's somehow automatically true because Vox Day said that it was. Congratulations, guys. Vox Day is right up there with Robin DiAngelo in terms of academic rigor. All of that shit. He had a book that he put out called Cuddle and Compliment, supposed to be the beta's guide, the guide to beta game. The book was written as a mockery of men who want an actual emotional connection with a woman, men who actually respect women's boundaries, men who don't want to push women into doing something they're not ready to do, men who actually want to have a romantic relationship, men who actually care about the feelings of their partners, all of those things. Just this sickening commentary, or sickening mockery of it. That person is now touting himself as wanting a real, committed, long-term relationship with a woman. I don't think he actually wants that at all, because I don't think he actually knows what it is. I think he wants to, I think his goal is to find a woman that he can control and oppress and mistreat for the remainder of his miserable existence, because that's ultimately what motivates him, is a desire to harm people, a malevolence. I think that's what he's looking for. And my basis for that is that he actually wrote an article in his previous incarnation talking about how he thinks that women ought to lose all of their legal rights and become the legal property of men to such a degree that men can decide who women will and will not have sex with. And, again, that's always what I pose to people when they say that he was being sarcastic or satirical in the article where he outright called for rape to be made legal. I say, well, if he sincerely and truly wants a world where men are allowed to legally decide who a woman can and cannot, or will and will not have sex with, how is that different from making rape legal? If they can legally override her consent, explain it to me. And they can't, of course. Instead, it's just further evidence that I'm an omega, or a gamma, or whichever one of those is the most damnable. And the thing of it is, in my foolishly allowing myself to be associated with that, I resisted Roosh V's way of thinking every step of the way, but it got so hammered into me that I started thinking that way whether I wanted to or not. So, for example, I turned 37 a couple of weeks ago. I was talking to some friends privately on Facebook, lamenting the fact that I had not found a woman I wanted to spend my life with, that I had not had the romantic relationships that are really truly fulfilling romantic relationship. My last real relationship ended in 2016. My girlfriend and I at the time lived together for nearly a year and then broke up. That I had not reached the point, and in the course of that, I lamented that I never figured out how to pick up girls at bars. I still don't know how to do it. I'm not a bar or club kind of guy. I go to those places mainly if I have a show that I am playing, that I'm performing at, or I'm going to see somebody else's show. I really am not usually a bar guy. I have no fucking clue how to pick up women in bars. I have never done it. And I said in the course of that discussion that I feel like a loser because, my 20s came and went and I never figured that out. I never figured out how to pick up skanks in bars. And somebody said, and this is where the Roosh V by sheer force of will thinking comes into play. When I think about that, or when I was talking about that, somebody said in that discussion, what you have to remember, Jordan, is those girls in their early 20s, just like everybody else, just like the guys, just like everybody else in their early 20s, they're all screwed up in the head, they're just in crazy hormonal party land, and by the time the 30s come around, all of that will have settled down, and they will be looking for a real substantial person, which is what you are. And without even thinking about it, I just automatically said, no, I'm a beta provider. And I said, what's a beta provider? And I said, Okay, in the manosphere terminology, a beta provider is a beta male that is a beta male that attracts a gets an attractive, desirable, high value mate, high value partner in his 30s because she was used up and spat out by the alphas. So if a beta provider, if a beta provider does get an attractive woman, it will always be one of the alpha's former girlfriends. So what it means is that she was already used up and spat out by the alpha, and she's now damaged goods that the alpha's passing along to me. And she's just and me being a beta provider, she's just coming to me for lifestyle support in her declining years. And I just started spitting this shit out in my depressed state. I just started running through this shit. And the friends I was talking to were like, what in the fuck are you talking about? And I said, and I explained, the situation. And I said, this is the thing. I don't want to view the world this way. I would be perfectly happy meeting a nice woman in her 30s that I could have a real relationship with, except that this psychopathic lunatic with his fruity little club has so victimized people like me and so mutilated and perverted the discussion around sex and around love and relationships that this is how I automatically see things, and I don't know how to shake these thoughts and these feelings. And before you tell me as a joke that I need help, that I need professional help, and that I need to see a therapist or something like that, I already am. Thank you very much. So my question would be, is Roosh V actually sorry for putting such toxic thoughts into people's heads and just psychologically brain fucking so many people that want real decent relationships with women that he teased and belittled for that? I mean, is he sorry for being the Cobra Kai of the pickup artist world? And no, that's not meant to make him sound cool. Is he sorry at all for that? He's never expressed any understanding or any remorse or anything for that, as far as I can tell. And I promise you, if he ever responds to criticisms that are levied by people like me, people like the Beckloff, things like that, he will not answer them in the context of a self-analysis of his problems and what he has done to people, and reflect on his mistakes and his shortcomings, because he's not actually capable of reflecting on those things. He will instead contextualize it as us having some kind of problem. Clearly, we, his detractors, are the ones who are insane. Clearly, we, his detractors, are the ones who are being unreasonable and making unreasonable demands of him and his time. That is how he will see it. Because with his mindset, he is not capable of the self-reflection necessary to actually have the change of heart, real change of heart, that a genuine Christian conversion might provide him with. Anyway, I've been thinking about that for a while. I wanted to get it off my chest. The manosphere. I did a video a while ago talking about the so-called black pill, and in that video I said, I talked about how black pillars are people who will say that if you're short, you don't have a deep voice and a deep resonant voice, and you don't have a prominent chin, then the women will totally ignore you and have nothing to do with you. Whereas if you do have all of those things, you'll have effortless success. And I said, guys, look, I have all of those things. I'm 6'2". I have a prominent jaw and prominent chin, a prominent jawline, and a deep resonant voice, and I don't have effortless success with the women. It's not a guarantee. And some fucking idiot, totally missing the point, writes in and says, don't be, it's like he said, don't feel bad, bro. I know you can looks max and I know you can looks max and at least go up 2 points. Okay, looks max means that I can do everything in my power to improve my physical appearance, and by extension, I will go up 2 points. So if I'm a 5 now, I'll be a 7, and so on and so forth. And it's like, oh my fucking God! Do you people understand? If that is what you're tempted to say genuinely, to try to give somebody support, to try to help somebody, for the love of Christ, don't. And I truly mean, I'm sorry, I said that as a blasphemous euphemism, but truly out of love for the human spirit, stop saying shit like that to people. Take a step back and don't ever try to give anyone advice ever again until you can understand how utterly sickening and revolting what you said there really was. This fruity little thing that people called the manosphere was absolutely, it did absolutely no good for anybody. All it did was waste people's time and brainwash people at worst. So, if Roosh V is really and truly a Christian, he needs to discover his humanity, something that he never has. And I'll say this. I will say this. There is one way in which Roosh V and I are alike, and that is that we both overanalyze the hell out of everything. I definitely do the same thing. I definitely have that same computational mindset where I just start automatically doing the same thing. And if I'm not careful, I will compute and analyze the beauty and the soul and the poetry out of everything. The difference is I know that I'm doing it and I'm capable of doing better. I'm yet to see any such thing from Roosh. I think that when Roosh speaks in these insanely analytical, computational ways that just suck all the joy and the life out of everything, I think that is a weapon. I think that is something that he is doing as an act of malevolence. It's the behavior, to use the expression, this originates with Satanism, but it's a very accurate expression. Roosh is a psychic vampire. He is someone who cannot experience joy or happiness in his own life, so he goes about sucking the joy and happiness out of the lives of everybody around him. And that is what that clinical tone of voice does. That way that he talks about things. People make fun of Roosh where, he says, like, there's this one thing where he's using Legos or Playmobil or something to dramatize how you should hit on women. This video has gone viral and made the rounds for how ridiculous it is. But at one point he says, approach the woman from the side and tap her on the, I think he even specifies which shoulder. It's like he says, tap her on the left shoulder 3 times. Like it's like every woman you meet, you have to go to get her 3 times to get her attention. If I was tapping someone on the shoulder, for some reason it feels right to do 2. I don't know why. But it's just like the way he talks about everything in these insanely clinical tones. I think it's a weapon. I think it's a way of sucking the joy out of everybody else's life because he himself does not experience any joy. Anyway.